my name is Kat and welcome back to the channel, Simple Music Theory. Today we're actually doing the second video in a series called Simple Music Theory for Guitar, and today we're going to be talking about the 12 notes of Western music. Last week we answered the question, what is sound, specifically for the purposes of learning music theory, and this week we're going to look at some of the ideas we talked about last week and see how the properties of sound that we talked about last week led logically to the 12 notes that we use in Western music. So I'm going to link last week's video somewhere around here because it was a long video and I am not going to repeat the vast majority of what I said, but just to remind you about the most important things we talked about some different properties of sound, including the pitch. And so the pitch of a sound is basically how high or how low the sound is. And the pitch is your brain's interpretation of the sound wave's frequency. So lower frequency, lower pitch, higher frequency, higher pitch. We also talked about a specific relationship of frequencies. When one frequency has a ratio of 2 to a different frequency, our brains perceive those as being like the same pitch, but one is higher and one is lower. Let me show you what I mean. Say hello to my guitar again. What I mean is we have this pitch, and then we have this pitch. So they sound the same, except one is lower and one is higher. So those two pitches that I just played, this frequency is twice as fast, twice as high as this frequency. And that relationship between one pitch with a lower frequency and another pitch with a higher frequency, a doubled frequency, is called an octave. So all up and down the neck, we have these octaves where we have one pitch that's lower and one pitch that's higher. They sound the same, but one's lower and one's higher. The distance between those two pitches is called an octave. Now, like I said in the last video, we have this naturally occurring phenomenon called an octave. We have these two pitches that sound the same, but one's higher and one's lower. The question then becomes, since we have this naturally occurring phenomena, now how do we split up the area in between these two notes? Different musical cultures had different answers for that question. In Western music, we use 12 notes to divide up that distance of an octave. A quick side note, for the sake of consistency, I want us to define note, which seems like it should be easy to do because it seems like an intuitive concept even for non-musicians. However, once you really drill down and try to give it a name, it becomes a little bit more complicated. So right now, I'm going to give you a definition of note. And I'm telling you right now, it's going to be a little abstract. And it's probably the most difficult concept in this video. So I'm going to say it, and if it doesn't make sense to you, then please ignore it. You really don't need it for the rest of what we're talking about. Just for the sake of consistency and explaining everything, I want us to have a solid definition, but you can learn everything in all of these videos without having a definition of note exactly. So what I'm about to say, if it doesn't make sense to you, you really don't have to worry too much about it. However, the definition that we can give note, it's not quite right to say that a note is a specific frequency because like we said before, the distance of an octave has two pitches with different frequencies. It's just that those frequencies have a specific relationship to one another, which is what makes them be perceived as having a very similar quality of being the same. So instead of saying that a note is a specific frequency or a specific pitch, we can say a note is a name that we give to a certain class of frequency or pitches. So a certain class of frequencies that have a specific relationship to each other. I know that was abstract and that was kind of weird and maybe a little bit hard to think about. Like I said before, if you're like me and you just want everything to be consistent and you want a definition to write down for everything, there you have it. You can come back to it later. I think the more you learn, the more it'll make sense. If that made absolutely no sense to you and you don't care, honestly, you do not need that definition. So just boop, throw it out the window. Let's keep talking. Right, we have the distance of an octave. I already told you that Western music divided the octave into 12 notes. We have a working definition of note that we don't really need, but if you want it, you have it. I think it's time to tell you what the 12 notes are. Now, if you've played the instrument for a length of time, you probably know what they are. You're probably at least familiar with this. They probably at least sound familiar to you, especially if you've learned another instrument that relies more on single notes than guitar usually does. But I'm going to tell you what they are, just in case, and to make sure we're all on the same page. So these 12 notes, there are 7 natural notes. A natural note is just the name of a note without a sharp or a flat. And the 7 natural notes go from A to G. They are A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Congratulations! If you know the alphabet, you already know the 7 natural notes in the correct order. There are also 5 notes that are not natural, so they're notes that we say the names with either a sharp or a flat. Now, these notes, all of them have 2 names, and we will get to why there would be 2 names in the future, but that is absolutely not a question for right now. Definitely do not worry about why right now, because that is a much higher level music theory question than we are answering right now. So for right now, this is one of those times you just have to know. They have 2 names, and I just want you to learn both names right now. Quick definition. I'm going to show you the symbol for sharp, and in your mind, you can just think of sharp as meaning above. So when we say A sharp, we're saying the note that is directly above A. When we say C sharp, we mean the note that is directly above C. Flat, I'll show you the symbol for flat right here. Kind of looks like a lowercase b. In your head, you can just think of flat as meaning below. So D flat is the note that's directly below D. G flat is the note that's directly below G. The note G flat is also directly above F, so that's why we can give it 2 names. We can call it either F sharp or G flat. A flat, the note directly below A, is also directly above G, so that's why we can call it A flat or G sharp. Again, you'll find out later why these notes have 2 names. For now, really, just know that they have 2 names and get used to saying both of them so that it's a little bit easier for you later. I'm going to insert those sharps or flats into the 7 notes we just talked about. So there is the note we can call either A sharp or B flat. There's the note we can call either C sharp or D flat. There's the note that we can call either D sharp or E flat. There's the note we can call either F sharp or G flat. And there's the note we can call either G sharp or A flat. You might be asking, why isn't there a sharp or a flat between every note of this scale? Why are some of them sharps and flats? Why don't we just use 12 different letters? The short answer is this is one of those things you just have to memorize. The slightly longer answer is the history of music is vast, and most of it is not written down because it's been developing for a very long time. So I don't think anyone has an exact answer, and most likely no one ever will. However, it seems like probably the 7 notes, the 7 natural notes were established first, relied upon first, and then most likely the notes in between those, so the sharps and flats, probably came along a little bit later as music continued to develop and we wanted access to more colors in music, you could say. Probably the answer, I don't think anyone knows for sure. You can go and try to read about it. There's some interesting stuff online, but there's not really a definitive answer. So short answer is, this is one of those things you just have to memorize. We have the 12 notes that divide up an octave. Why am I still talking? Why is this difficult? Why is this hard? Why, in a guitar video, is there a picture of a piano on the screen? It's because I want to tell you why this is a difficult concept on guitar that most beginners do not know and do not start learning until they're a later intermediate guitar player or even an advanced guitar player. And I want to commiserate with you a little bit and show you why this is a little bit easier for someone who plays an instrument like the piano. You can still do it, and you will absolutely do it, and we're going to put the notes on the neck of the guitar in the next video. But for now, I just want to show you why this is going to be harder if guitar is your only instrument or if guitar is your first instrument. Looking at the piano, we can see already, if you've never played piano, you can still already see that there's a visual pattern. There's a pattern of 2 black notes, 3 black notes, 2 black notes, 3 black notes. So already, when you sit down to learn the piano, you can learn the names of all the notes in one day. And within a week, you can really quickly find the notes if you practice every day, because there's a visual pattern. You can see every time there's 2 black notes, the white note immediately to the left of those 2 black notes is C. All the white notes are natural notes, so you know the alphabet, you can count up from C and down from C and find out the names of all the white notes. And then you can visually see which notes have a sharp or a flat between them. So for example, you can see between F and G that there's a black note in between them, and we already know that note can be called either F sharp or G flat. You can see that there's no sharp or flat between C and B. So you already know, okay, there's no sharp or flat there. It just goes B, C, and then the next note is either C sharp or D flat because I can see that there's a black note there. That's enough piano for this guitar lesson. Let's look at the guitar. Can you show me where the C note is? I'll make it easier. Can you point to where the sharps or the flats are? Or tell me which notes do or do not have a sharp or a flat between them. No, you cannot, for all the beauty of guitar and certain simplicities about guitar that other instruments don't have. Guitar is not a very visual instrument. You cannot look at a guitar and see where the notes are. You cannot see where sharps or flats are like you can on piano. And I only wanted to show you that to let you know that this is difficult. This is hard. This is something that takes time and practice in a way that it doesn't take on piano. You can do it, and we're going to talk a lot more about how to specifically do it on guitar in the next video, but I just want to reassure you that this is more difficult on guitar, and that's why we're spending so long on this concept. Because guitar is a bunch of similarly sized rectangles, whereas the piano has white notes and black notes, and is all pretty and easy to see. Because guitar is a bunch of rectangles, you have to hold in your head the order of the notes. And so I'm going to give you a little memory tool that my guitar teacher gave me in my very first guitar lesson more than 10 years ago. He wrote it on his whiteboard, and I am not kidding. Every time I play guitar, I think of this memory tool. It seems silly to even call it a tool because I'm about to show it to you, and it's literally so dumb and so easy. It's just a way to write the notes, but somehow visually it just stuck in my head, and I see this visual when I'm figuring out the notes on the guitar to this day, and it's really helpful. So, guitar is a bunch of rectangles. You need to hold what notes have sharps and flats in between them in your head and which notes do not. So that way you can figure out where the notes are on the neck. So, here's the memory tool. We have the 7 natural notes. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I just realized I'm probably not pointing at the letters because I'm going to add the letters later, but you know what I was trying to go for. You have the 7 natural notes. There are 2 slashes in between B and C, and in between E and F. Those slashes are to remind you that B and C and E and F do not have sharps or flats between them. So when you go one note up from E, the next note is F. It's not E sharp or F flat. No, 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 no. It is E and then it is F. And the same with from B to C. All the other notes, so the notes that do not have slashes in between them, have a note that we can call a sharp or a flat. So for example, there's no sharp between D and E. So we know that the next note after D, we can call either D sharp or E flat. Then we go E, and then we see a slash. So we know the next note is an F. It's really important, like I said before, to keep that, whether this works for you or you figure out some other way to remember there's no sharps or flats between B and C or E and F. It's really important for you to keep that in your mind because, like I said before, you can't see the visual relationship of the notes on the guitar like you can with other instruments like the piano. So it's really important that you know what order the notes go in. Because they're in alphabetical order, and you know the alphabet, you can get the natural notes in order. The next thing that's hard to remember that you have to learn to remember, that is memorization, is knowing which notes do not have a sharp or a flat in between them. And this memory tool will hopefully help you do that. Okay, everyone, that was another video of simple music theory for guitar. In the next video, we're actually going to place all those 12 notes on the neck. It's going to be a long video because we're going to practice playing every single note on the neck and naming it, but I think that'll also be really helpful for you. And my hope is that between the last video about sound and this video about the 12 notes, you now have a firmer basis of why we're learning these things, some idea of how these things developed and why it makes some logical sense. So that way, when we're putting all these notes on the neck of the guitar, it's not just like, wow, what are all these letters? What are all these sharps and flats? What's going on? There's some basis in your mind for understanding why this makes some sense. Right now, with the very high-tech review board, we're going to review the things that we learned in this video. So we learned the 12 notes of Western music. We gave a definition to note, but the definition was a little bit complicated and not strictly necessary for the rest of these videos, so I did not write it on the review sheet. If you're like me and you just want things to be consistent, I hope that you wrote it down so that you know it in your head. Probably is not going to come up again. But here are the really important things that I want you to remember that will come up in future videos. We talked about the 12 notes. We talked about how sharp in your head you can just think above. So for example, A sharp is the note above A. And we talked about flat in your head, you can just think below. So B flat, the note below B. So we talked about these 12 notes. The natural notes have no sharps or flats, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And there's also notes with sharps and flats in between some of those natural notes. A sharp, B flat, C sharp, D flat, D sharp, E flat, F sharp, G flat, G sharp, A flat. And I could have kept writing. The next note would have been A, and then A sharp, B flat, on and on. I started with A for the sake of the alphabet. The next thing we talked about is why this concept is easier on piano and why this is a challenge for guitar. Again, you're not learning piano right now, but I just want to reassure you, piano has a visual pattern, so you can already see all the white notes are the natural notes. And there's a repeating pattern of black notes, 2 black notes, 3 black notes, 2 black notes, 3 black notes. So the only reason I showed you that is to let you know if you were learning piano, this process would be much easier. Or maybe if you've already learned piano or you play piano, you have some idea of this process and you're thinking, why is this so hard on guitar? It was so easy on piano. Piano has a visual pattern. A guitar, on the other hand, is a bunch of random rectangles. So looking at a guitar, you cannot see the notes, which is why this is hard, why this takes time and practice, and why we're spending so long on this concept early on in these videos. The last thing we talked about, which to me is the most useful and the most important, is this little visual way of writing the notes to help you remember where the sharps and flats are. A, B, slash, C, D, E, slash, F, G. And that slash is to remind you there's no sharps or flats there. So there's no slash between A and B. So we know between A and B, there's a note, and we can call that note either A sharp or B flat. Between B and C, there is a slash. So there is no note in between B and C. It just goes B, C. There's no slash between C and D, so we have a note we can call either C sharp or D flat, and etc. And that is really important because, like I said before, in the next video, we're going to place these 12 notes on the neck of the guitar. And so it's really important for you to know there is a sharp or a flat note here, or there is not, because you're going to have to hold that information in your head while we're placing those notes on the guitar, and that's going to tell you how to place those. Okay, everyone, I hope that you learned a lot today. I hope that that was a really good application of the properties of sound that we talked about last week. This video and the last video are probably the most theoretical videos. I mean, of course, okay, all of these are theoretical. It is simple music theory. I guess I should say that this video and the last video are probably the most abstract and involve the least amount of playing because they're really foundational concepts. The future videos are going to involve, of course, a lot of theory, but a lot more of putting the notes on the guitar, placing the notes on the guitar, and playing the guitar. However, these two videos were the basis of what you're playing on guitar, so it was really important to go over those in detail. But that was the video. That was the review. I hope that you learned a lot. I hope that if you have any questions at all, you'll ask them in the comments so that I can clarify myself. And I'm sure that if you have a question, someone else has the same question. I would really love to help you learn. And so if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Please like this video if you liked it, and please subscribe to the channel so that you know when the next video comes out. like I said before, the next video is going to be placing these notes on the guitar. It's going to be very exciting. You don't want to miss it. And I guess that means I will see you next time. Bye!